friends. Thank you so much for being here. My name is David, and today's practice is a 90-minute lower back pain workshop focusing on different stretches that we can do. But additionally, the first portion of this practice will be spending about 15 minutes or so talking about back pain, causation of back pain, things that we may not realize that we're doing day to day that contribute to that back pain through inflammation, and then we'll get into stretching. Now, although this is 90 minutes, this could honestly be stretched out over a 3-hour period, just because there is a number of different stretches that we can do in order to help, but I do have to condense this a little bit in order to make sure that I have time to eat, and then also teach at USC starting at 10 o'clock. So wanted to at least provide a little bit of background for those that are working through chronic back pain, and maybe we can implement a few things on a day-to-day basis that can help with that back pain. So unfortunately, because this isn't a Zoom call, I can't see a show of hands of people who have chronic back pain, but most of us have probably experienced back pain at some point in our life, or some back tension or some back stress. There is a lot of confounding factors that contribute to that. There's genetic factors, there's ergonomic factors, there's dietary factors. As far as genetics, things like osteoarthritis can sometimes show up. Some of us have experienced trauma. Say we were involved in a car accident or a really hard fall, and there was some trauma that was put onto the spine. There are stretches that we can do to help alleviate some of that stress, some of that tension that's built up from these things. But with that said, okay, I want to make sure there, I thought I lost signal. Make sure you're also talking to a medical professional too about some of these things. I feel that it's important to integrate both Western medicine and more Eastern medicine practices. I find personally that yoga has been very helpful, that breathing has been very helpful, and by breathing I mean concentrated, focused breathing has been very helpful. By switching my lifestyle around a little bit too, slowing down, not trying to compress so many things into my schedule, because there is a lot of agitation that can occur when we are constantly go, 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 go. And so, different causes of back pain. So there is muscle and ligament strain. There's stuff that we just do day to day, whether it's stooping down, bending down. There's quick movements that we can do that can cause muscle pain and muscle strain, as well as ligament and tendon strains. We sometimes have what is called bulging or ruptured or herniated discs, okay? And this is when there is compression that is on the spine, and I'll show a diagram in just a moment. But when there is compression on the spine that compresses the vertebral discs are these little discs that are located between the vertebral bodies, the bones of the spine. And so when there's too much pressure, then we can start to have a slipped disc or a bulging disc or a herniated disc, where we start to have movement of what is inside the vertebral disc. It's called the annula. But we start to have little minor tears in that, and that's when the fluid can start to bulge outwards. And then again, we also have arthritis and osteoporosis. Okay, there are different contributing factors to this. There's things like age, lack of exercise. If we're not practicing being mobile or moving, then it's sort of the use it or lose it principle. Eventually we are going to lose that. Okay, so while we have these bodies and a level of fitness, it is moving the body through the range of motions. It doesn't mean we need to be doing handstands or crazy acrobatics or anything like that, but doing day-to-day exercises that moves the body through its range of motion is helpful. Okay, excess weight can cause extra tension on the body, loading of joints. That is going to naturally cause pain. Diseases. There's some types of arthritis and cancers that can also contribute to back pain. Improper lifting. Okay, and I see this a lot going to the gyms, people grunting and moaning, doing way too much weight, more than their body. And I get it, I used to be that, and that's also why I suffered from a lot of my own, chronic pain too, because we start to lift way more than we really need to be lifting for these bodies. And I understand we have different fitness goals, but sometimes these fitness goals need to be tweaked a little bit in order for us to be able to maintain a healthy lifestyle without giving our attention and focus to the pain that's going on. Because the truth is, when we have something that's chronic like pain, instead of putting that energy out towards, enjoying life, now we're putting that energy towards trying to heal ourselves. So, looking at that, are we lifting too much when we're going to the gym? And I also see this a lot I love CrossFit. I'm not knocking it at all. But I do see a lot of improper lifting in CrossFit too. A lot of jerking actions that put a lot of force on the joints that really isn't that good. So if you are into CrossFit, continue, but practice CrossFit mindfully. A lot of ballistic fast stretching can also put tears in strains on the joints. Learning to just be more mindful in the process. Psychological conditions. All right, psychological conditions, and I talk about this a lot from a mental standpoint about how the mind is very much like the puppet master. And if we are not watchful of the mind, our minds will tell us to do all sorts of crazy things and to do certain things. So we have to learn to be more watchful of our thoughts, because thoughts are a contributing factor to sometimes the chronic symptoms we experience. And finally, things like smoking and over alcohol consumption. They cause a lot of inflammation. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment too. But smoking prompts more coughing. When we have more coughing, we start to have more of this jerkiness in the back, which is very abrupt for the body. So smoking, vaping, anything like that, if we can be aware of it and if we can start to make little changes here and there, we're going to also be able to benefit ourselves. The other issue with smoking too, smoking causes a decrease in blood flow. Instead of vasodilation, we have vasoconstriction. So also when there is pain in anywhere in the body, not just the back, we start to see complications through blood flow, because now that body part is not receiving the type of oxygen and nutrients that it should, because it's now shunted. All right. Basic things we can do day to day. Basic things that we can do day to day with things like back pain. Stand smarter. So standing more upright. I see a lot of people. They'll stand, and my head may be cut off here. It looks like it isn't, but if it is, it is. But I'll see a lot of people with just ergonomics where they'll stand and talk like this. Well, that throws the body off, because now we're throwing a hip off to the side. Now we're finding compression in our spine. This can start to put a little bit of tension and cause even sciatica, or be a contributor to it, I should say. So watch as you stand day to day. And this is where proprioception, body awareness, becomes important, because we want to know where our body is in space. So learning to stand, we can still stand openly, but standing more with our feet rooted to the ground, pressing downwards, lifting up. That way we load the spine properly, as opposed to throwing our spine off to the side. How we load our spine. Okay, watching how we carry things. If we're carrying backpacks or purses or handbags to one side or the other, that's naturally also going to cause compression on one side of the spine and a pinching on the other side of the spine. So we have to look out for that. Lifting smart. So when we lift smart, use your knees, use the entire body, not just bending over and then straining as we come up. Another part of lifting too is using the core muscles. Oftentimes I'll watch people lift and there's a flaccidity to the core muscles, meaning they're not being engaged. When we can learn, and this is important, when we can learn to lift things, bend the knees, use the core. As the core engages, we now create a core set sensation around the body, or a brassiere if if you would rather use that word, but it creates support through this area, so then when we lift, now we're not straining our backs as much. Other things that we can do is watching when we sit. So if I'm going to go sit, instead of just, bending over and sitting down, that's a lot of strain on the back. And I see this a lot of people do it. When getting up, hands on the knees, core is engaged, shift the weight forward, long spine, rise up. Using the glutes, using the core and the back, so everything works in concert together. And the same thing when sitting down. As we sit down, not just crashing down, but just sitting down mindfully. Same thing. Sitting down, rising up again. Okay? There are a lot of different props out there. A lot of people want our money to be able to, build their own thing. Props are great, but we can also get over props, so buyer beware. Watch out. There's a lot of different slick items out there that will say, oh, this will cure your back pain, this, that, and the other. Do your research. Please do your research. Sometimes it is trial and error when it comes to finding the right props. I find that having the basic props, a bolster, blankets, a strap, and blocks are sometimes the best items, and they're not that expensive. You can get a bundle of this stuff for right around $25 to $30, and you can buy it online, be delivered to your door pretty quickly. Before we get into stretching, one more area I find is important that is not talked about enough, and I find that it's probably the most valuable part of understanding chronic pain, not just back pain, but chronic pain. There are a lot of things that we put into our bodies that cause pain regularly, and we have to learn to start looking at this stuff a little bit more. We are conditioned through flavor and tastes and how we may have grown up, we may have eaten certain things. So oftentimes we let that run the show as opposed to being more mindful about what it is that we are putting into these bodies. Sooner or later, it catches up to us. Practicing mindfulness now and observing how foods affect us is a critical part of managing chronic pain. Now, I went on the osteoporosis arthritis site. It's the Arthritis Society, and they explain that there's about 8 different foods that we put into our diets. I'll go over them fairly quickly, but there's about 8 different foods we put into our diet that are major contributors to chronic inflammation inside of the body. The number 1 is sugars, okay, refined sugars. And that is when you take something that is whole and then break it down and pull out everything except just the sugars, and the sugar is what is left. Okay? I'm not here to say don't eat sugars at all. I feel that everybody has, their little sweets and taste buds and everything like that. I'm not here to take anything away from you or say don't do this, but it is important to be mindful and watchful of some of these things. So when it comes to sugars, our body has metabolize and break down sugars in fruits and vegetables and everything else. Our body from the very beginning has everything that it needs in order for it to break foods down. But when we take something that's already been refined down, we take out all of the processes that our body naturally has to break it down to make it useful. So all of a sudden we get this hit of sugar and it just causes the body to inflame. Our body, again, has these natural processes to break food down. When we start to skip steps in that, things like overjuicing, things like, again, just eating sugars. When we start to just pull proteins out as opposed to having everything together and letting the body digest it on its own, it's going to cause levels of inflammation. Okay? So cutting down sugars, it's recommended if you can get down to about 15 grams of sugar a day, 15 grams of sugar a day, then we will significantly begin to see decreases in inflammation within the body. Things like trans fats, okay, those would be partially hydrogenated oils. They raise our LDL cholesterol levels. This can cause inflammation through our blood vessels, cause inflammation in the heart and around the heart, cause inflammation all throughout the body. So learning to eliminate trans fats. Usually on the back of the label or packages, they have to label this stuff. So check that out. See what the trans fats are. Saturated fats. Okay, saturated fats are said to, according to a study from the University of California, San Francisco, short circuit the immune system. So instead of the immune system functioning properly, it basically short circuits it so it can no longer function properly in order to fight illness. So then we have this inflammation that begins to build up because it can no longer do its work and do its job. Remember, the immune system is there to break down and fight foreign agents that come into the body, foreign diseases or foreign cells. But when the immune system isn't available to do that, now we are compromised. All right, it is said omega-6 fatty acids, they're not all bad, but we do need to watch the level of omega-6 fatty acids that we're putting in our bodies. Okay? The main charge against omega-6 fats is that the body can convert the most common one, which is called linolenic acid, into another fatty acid called arachidonic acid. And arachidonic acid is a building block for molecules that promote inflammation, blood clotting, and the constriction of blood vessels. So we have to watch omega-6 fatty acids too. If we are eating a whole food balanced diet, we really don't need extraneous omega-6 fatty acids in our system. But again, that goes back to eating a balanced whole food diet. Things like refined carbohydrates. Okay, when we break something down, like breads, for instance, instead of getting the whole grain, which has everything inside of it, we've now broken that grain down into the starchy material, which is easily pulled in, but that's going to cause inflammation too. Things like MSG, this is a sneaky one because foods put it in there. Doritos, Pringles, and a whole bunch of other foods have MSG inside of it. Sometimes it's labeled underneath natural flavoring. But what MSG does is it stimulates the taste buds in order for a food to taste better than what it is. And so these companies can put all these gnarly chemicals inside of the food, man-made chemicals, and can basically be cheaper in their processes, but throw a little MSG on it, it's like magic dust that stimulates the taste buds, opens them up, so now you're getting a different flavor profile. But in that can also cause us to just put more food and more food and more food into the body, and without even realizing it, we're now experiencing inflammation. MSG is there's no nutritional value to it. It's not a preservative, and it's just an additive that creates extra chronic inflammation. Gluten and casein. Okay, gluten, again, you can find this in doughs and cakes and other things, but this stuff gets stuck inside of our intestinal tract. And it's very difficult to break down, but what it also does is it prevents the uptake and absorption of food and nutrients inside the intestine. And there is now more and more we're seeing people with gluten intolerances. So if you can, maybe back off gluten or eating breads. You know, there are gluten-free breads out there. The flavor profile is going to taste different. If you're going to go down that path, you just know that food is going to taste different as you go down this route, as you start to take things out. Different's not bad. Different is just normal in the process of working through taking things out that are causing inflammation and pain. Other things, casein. okay? Casein can be found in cheeses and milks. And I know not a lot of people like this, and it sometimes pushes people away, but milk causes inflammation. The milk that we drink from another animal, another species, is for that animal. When you look at, for instance, a cow, a reason why a baby calf can grow so quickly is because of the beta casein located inside the mother's milk. Now, when that calf drinks that, its protein is meant for the cow itself, not the human biome, the cow biome. But when we start to ingest that, we start to see this almost immediate inflammatory response that blows the body up. Now, the dairy industry isn't going to tell us this because that effectively affects their productivity, their consumerism, as well as their bottom line. But if we are really going to look at it, look at the studies. Don't take my word for it. Look at the studies, put it to the test. When we start to take casein out, we see that inflammation begins to die down too. Where can we also find casein? Whey protein. Take whey protein out of the diet if you're taking whey protein. So removing gluten, casein are benefits to the body and reduces inflammation. Finally, this is a tough one, I know, for a lot of people, but alcohol. Alcohol has a lot of sugar inside of it. It abnormally affects the digestive tract. It abnormally affects our liver processes and functions, and it will contribute to chronic pain. If you've ever been out for a hard night drinking before, the next day you wake up feeling kind of rickety and dehydrated, alcohol really is not that great for the body. I've had to learn this the hard way many times over. But I will say this, experiment with it. That's the most important thing. Experiment and see for yourself. I'm not saying take everything out all at once. I'm not saying all of a sudden switch overnight and turn a light switch off and don't do any of these things or eat any of these things. All I'm saying is look at how they may be contributing to chronic tension and chronic pain and inflammation, weight gain, things like that. The more that we can look at this stuff and make changes, the less physical suffering we experience, which means that we have more energy and time to be able to do the things that we want to do in day-to-day life, rather than focusing that attention on trying to deal with our pain. And the other thing is, too, the less medications that we have to take, because medications are just masking the symptoms. They're not doing anything other. They're blocking the pain, yes, so that we can continue doing the same consuming activities and same habits, but pain is pain is pain. And if all we're doing is masking it, it will eventually compound. It may lead to surgery. It may lead to other confounding factors later on. So we have to have a willingness to honestly look at ourselves and honestly look at our habits and make those changes if we want to see a decrease in that pain, a decrease in medication, a decrease in inflammation. So with that said, let's get into our stretching. Some major areas of focus I'm going to focus on today, and I'm going to just walk up here and just show you. Some major areas of focus is going to be our breathing. We're going to focus on what is called the psoas. Hopefully you can see this, it may be backwards. But if you look at how this particular muscle is attached, this particular muscle, where it is attached along the spine and within the rib cage, if it starts to shorten, atrophy, and tighten and clench, then it is going to start to throw our spine out of whack. And there is a little secondary muscle in here. You can see it. It's called the iliacus. This one is very difficult to stretch, but we will do some stretching techniques today that will help with opening this particular muscle up. Now, here's a picture of the groin, and as you can see, Within the groin, there is a lot of musculoskeletal connectivity. And so where do we start with all of this? Well, a lot in yoga, I've seen this, we do a lot of forward stretching, but not a lot of back stretching, meaning we do forward bending, but not back bending. And part of this practice today is focusing on doing a little bit more front body stretching, which is a contributor to that back pain we may be experiencing. And then again, here's just another image of where the iliacus is and how it connects down to the femur. And finally, bulging discs and herniated discs, in case you ever had a question what this looks like. There's a normal disc on top, there's a degenerative disc where it starts to break down, there's a bulging disc, herniated disc, and then there's a thinning disc. And so we're going to look at this stuff and we're going to do these stretches now, and let's go ahead and start to feel into our bodies. So what I'd like you to do is, if you have blankets, I'd like you to grab blankets and place them underneath the backs of the knees. Place your head on a bolster. Left hand over the heart, right hand on the belly. And so our first little exercise will be diaphragmatic breathing, or diaphragm breathing, learning to breathe with the diaphragm. Now as we breathe, I'd like you to focus on lifting the belly upwards. Keep the spine where it's at, but feel the belly button lift upwards as you breathe into the lower rectus abdominis muscles. Let's begin. Please take a long, slow breath in. Fill your lungs up. Exhale, let it go. Long, slow breath in. Please fill your lungs up. Exhale, letting it go. Long, slow, deep breath in. Feel the belly rise, chest expand, rib cage opening. Exhale, letting it go. And long, slow, deep breath in. Fill lungs all the way up. Feel the belly rising. Exhale, letting it go. Continue to breathe on your own. Breathe as deep as you can. And as you breathe as deep as you can, find balance in the inhales and exhales. I'll talk a little bit as you do this. Now, one of the key aspects to chronic pain is the tension that is created. In a lot of that, there is a psychological aspect. So by bringing focus to the breath and attention to the breath, rather than to the thought forms about whatever may be stressing us out, we begin to re-engage in the breathing process. We begin to put more oxygen into our bodies that is now uptaken into our cardiovascular system that is now moved around the body. When we feed the body that excess oxygen, as well as feed the brain that excess oxygen, well, now we begin to feel more light, more relaxed, more at ease. That, in general, is one of the biggest steps that we can do to help alleviate chronic tension and chronic pain. Then wherever we're at, please take one more long, slow, deep breath in. Fill lungs up. And exhale, letting it go. So let's move into our first stretch. So with our first stretch, keep the breath going at this pace, at this rhythm, and then let's slowly start to bend our knees. Bring your knees into your chest. Now this is a pose I do a lot in my classes, but it's a great way to stretch out the lower back. It adds more of a kyphotic curve to the lower back rather than its natural curve, which is called a lordotic curve. So as you bring your thighs in towards your chest, give yourself a little rock side to side. Now some of these stretches will work, some of them won't. Everyone's a little bit different, especially if we have a bulging disc or slip disc in different directions. So we have to be mindful about which stretches will work and which stretches won't work. As you rock it side to side, take your time. Feel into your back. Now, how often should we stretch? You know, if we can incorporate a basic stretching practice of about 8 to 9 stretches we do regularly on a near daily basis, you're doing good. Can we overstretch? Absolutely. We can overstretch. And every now and then I've noticed that because I teach yoga and this is the work that I do, I find that I can sometimes overstretch. Good. And let's come back to center. Try to wrap your forearms around your shins. If that's not available, that's okay. Wrap them around the backs of the knees to your best of your ability. Then pull the thighs in towards the chest and lightly press your tailbone down towards the ground. Take a long, slow, full breath in. Fill lungs up. Exhale, let it go. Deep breath in. Please fill your lungs up. Exhale, letting it go. And full breath in. Fill lungs up. Exhale, letting it go. Slowly bend your knees. Now as you bend your knees, if you have blankets in the way, move them out of the way. Keep your right knee bent, keep your left knee bent. Take your hands to your thighs. Now what I'd like you to do is just press your thighs away from you. As you press your thighs away, you'll feel a slight release in the lower back. Long, slow, deep breath in. Exhale. Deep breath in. Exhale. Full breath in. Exhaling. And deep breath in. Exhale. Let's do one more. Inhaling. Press the thighs away. Exhale. Release the hands. Shake the hands out. Now it's important when we do these stretches, don't just do them for about 5 to 10 seconds. Do them for about 1.5 to about 2 minutes. And so the metering of the breath, again, this is a little bit of a shortened class. The typical workshop would be about 3 hours long. But if you can hold them for about 2 to 3 minutes, even better. The next one we're going to do is lift your feet off the ground. Very similar. And this is it'd be better if we had partners to do this, but because of social distancing and everything, it makes it a little bit difficult. But take your hands to your thighs, and then just lightly, again, press your thighs away from you. Full breath in. Press your lower back to the ground. Exhale. Deep breath in. Exhale. Flex your feet. 3 more. Inhaling. Exhaling. Two more. Inhaling. Exhaling. Inhaling. And exhaling. All right. From here, please bend both knees. As you bend both knees, lengthen your left leg forward and then bring your right knee in towards your chest. Take your left hand to your left hip flexor area, left psoas, and lightly press down and forward. Right knee pulls in towards the chest. Shoulder blades down the back. Draw the right elbow in. Flex both of your feet. Long, slow, deep breath in. Exhale. Long, slow, deep breath in. Exhaling. Long, slow, deep breath in. And exhaling. Beautiful. Let's switch sides. Bring your left knee into your chest. Lengthen your right leg forward. Right hand to the right psoas hip flexors. Flex through both feet. And as you press down with the right hand, press the palm forward and down. Collarbone spread, shoulders down the back. Left elbow drawing in towards the left rib cage. Press your right heel forward. Long, slow, deep breath in. Exhale. Long, slow, deep breath in. Exhaling. And again, long, slow, deep breath in. Exhaling. then slowly lengthen your left leg forward, shake both legs out. All right, so let's either grab our blocks or blankets or bolsters. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to reverse some of the work we just did. So we're balancing it out. Let's place bolsters or blocks underneath the hips and take your legs long. If your head is on a bolster, release the bolster, place the head on the ground. And then cactus your arms. And so what we're doing by this stretch, again, you can use blocks, you can use bolsters, you can use blankets, but we are effectively lengthening our psoas, iliopsoas. As you cactus the arm, relax the lower back down. We'll do another variation of this later on. Feel the lower back. Release. Long, slow, deep breath in. Exhale. We don't want to be too aggressive in lifting our hips too high. This is an incremental practice, not an all-at-once practice. Deep breath in, fill lungs all the way up. Exhale, letting it go. Long, slow, deep breath in, fill your lungs all the way up. Exhale, letting it go. And deep breath in, fill your lungs all the way up. Exhale, letting it go. All right, from here, let's bend one knee at a time. As we bend one knee at a time, let's cross our right ankle over the left knee. Take your right hand to the inner right thigh near the right hip crease. Then just gently press the right thigh away. We're going to add on to this. Flex your right foot. Take a long, slow, smooth breath in. Exhaling. Deep breath in. Exhaling. And long, slow, smooth breath in. Exhaling. So we're building up into the stretch. Now, keep your hips on the blocks, bolster blankets. Start to bring your left thigh in towards your chest. Thread the needle pose. Interlace your hands behind the back of the left hamstring. Now, breathe slow and deep here. And I'll talk a little bit about confounding factors of lower back pain too. So when we don't stretch our hips out lightly, if we're doing lots of things like squatting or hamstring curls or calf raises, Okay, we are contracting the back side or posterior side of our body. When we start to do that and we don't stretch it out or have a regular stretch practice, we effectively begin to shorten the back side of the body through contraction. Okay? As muscle builds and bulks up and that contraction starts to happen, well, that is going to cause naturally tension on the back side of the body. That will start to translate upwards into the midsection of the body where the main body mass is. And so then we begin to experience lower back pain, lower back tension, hip pain, immobility through the hips as a result. So make sure that you are stretching your hamstrings and hips regularly, even if you don't have a normal yoga practice. Take a long, slow, smooth, deep breath in. Exhale, let it go. Slowly lower your left foot down. Uncross the right leg, lower the right foot down. Then from here, cross your left ankle over the right thigh. Take your left hand to the inner left thigh and press your inner left thigh away from you. Breathe on your own, slowly and deeply. Other things that we do a lot without necessarily realizing it is the ergonomics day to day. We do things like cross our legs. Okay, there's a lot of psychological reasons why we do this, but from a physiological standpoint, we are stretching one side more than the other. And so because of that, and when we do it on a regular basis, we start to develop subtle imbalances because one side of the body is longer than the other side. And so if we're constantly just crossing our right side over the left side, well, our right hip's going to be more open than our left hip. But in that, there is going to be a subtle imbalance that will translate upwards into our buttocks. It will also be a slight contributor to things like sciatica. Because when we have one side that's more open and one side that's more closed, well, the body's going to go to the path of least resistance, and because of that, it's going to shut down and cut down on the nerve channel where the sciatic nerve flows through. With your next inhale, slowly bring your right thigh in towards your chest, flex both feet, thread the needle pose, keep the buttocks, hips on your bolster, blocks, or blankets. Deep breath in. Exhale. And for most people, that is going to be our right side is more open than the left side. Deep breath in. Exhale. Full breath in. Exhale. Deep breath in. Exhaling. And deep breath in. Exhale. Awesome. Slowly uncross the legs. Lower the feet down towards the ground. Now from here, if you don't have one nearby, you may need to come off your bolster blocks, but I'd like you to grab a strap and then come back down and keep your hips on your bolster. Okay? Bring your right knee into your chest and slowly start to put the strap around the right foot and take your right leg upwards. By keeping our hips on a bolster, we're going to gain a little bit more access into our right hamstrings. Okay? Press your right heel upwards, flex your right foot, slide your hands down the strap. And if you don't have a strap, you can use a belt or a cord or anything in your house that might be useful. If you don't have that, then just interlace your hands behind the back of the right hamstring. Totally okay too. Press your right heel upwards. Draw your right hip slightly away from you. So it's almost like if you want to do this, you can take your right hand and roll the right hip outwards. Maintain that, and then bring your hands back to the strap. Now we can choose to stay here. Typically, for those that might have a herniated disc, keeping the left leg straight or left leg bent is a little bit better. But if you want to start to feel a stretch through your left psoas ever so slightly, lengthen your left leg forward. The bolstering of the hips is going to help in that elongation of the left psoas, left iliopsoas. So let's take 5 slow, deep breaths here. Inhale fully. Exhaling. Deep breath in. Exhaling. Deep breath in. Exhaling. Two more. Inhaling. Exhaling. And one more. Inhale. Exhaling. Slowly bend the right knee, release the strap, and with a bent right knee, lower the right foot down. Bring your left knee in towards your chest, place the strap around the left foot, then take your left leg upwards towards the sky. All right, so again, keeping your hips on your bolster. Take the left hand to your left thigh and roll your left thigh away from you so it's outwards. So it'd be an external rotation of the leg. Take your hands back to the strap, shoulder blades down the back. If you can bring your elbows down towards the ground, great. If not, that's okay too. Then bring the elbows inwards to the rib cage. You may stay here. You may start to take your right leg forward. Press your right heel down. Flex your left foot a little bit more. Then press your left heel upwards towards the sky. 5 long, slow, deep breaths. Inhale fully. Exhaling. Deep breath in. Exhaling. Three more. Inhaling. Exhaling. 2 more. Inhaling. Exhaling. And 1 more. Long, slow, deep breath in. And exhaling. Slowly start to bend your left knee, and then when you can, slowly lower the left foot down. Take your left leg forward, shake both legs out, lightly, ever so lightly. All right, so back body stretching, front body stretching. Let's go and start to stretch the front body a little bit more. Take your bolsters, slide them down, lower your buttocks down so that the bolsters are located about the middle of the hamstrings. And then we're going to roll all the way over onto our bellies. Now, be careful of your lower backs. For some, this pose may cause extraneous pinching, but we want to try to get into our psoas. So take your forearms, and as you take your forearms, cross your forearms, pull the navel in. As you pull the navel in, press the forearms down and start to pull your lower body forward, and you'll begin to feel a stretch through the lower rectus abdominis muscles as well as the psoas. So we have to make sure that we're keeping our core muscles engaged. It's not being flaccid in the rectus abdominis, so try to pull the navel inwards and upwards towards the spine so there's a contraction taking place. Let's take 5 long, slow, deep breaths here. Slow breath in. Exhale. Deep breath in. Exhale. Three more. Inhaling. Exhaling. Two more. Inhaling. Exhaling. And one more. Inhaling. And exhaling. Beautiful. Let's slide our hands back by our low ribs, press into your palms, and let's come into a child's pose. Take your bolsters or blankets, take them long ways, straddle them, knees wide apart, and then walk your hands forward, turn your head either to the left or to the right. Drop the hips back. If you need some cushioning underneath your knees, place some cushioning underneath your knees. Child's pose is a great pose to help relax the lower back. You may need to adjust your blankets or bolsters accordingly for your body. Some people like them more inwards, so more support by the lower rectus abdominis muscles. Some like it a little further away. If you have a weaker core, I recommend having your blankets back just a little bit further towards the inner groin. Long, slow, smooth breath in. Exhale, letting it go. Long, long, slow, smooth breath in. Exhale, letting it go. You know, and a big piece of lower back pain and overcoming it, I find one, the psychological piece is stop calling it your pain. Okay, we get sometimes wrapped up in the syntax of things, but call it the pain, but don't call it my pain. The more we use words like mine and my, when it refers to something that we're trying to get rid of, well, we can't get rid of it if we're constantly calling it ours. The body feels pain, you feel the pain, but try to reword that through syntax. You know, I feel the pain here. The pain wasn't ours 15, 20, 30 years ago, and if we do the right work, we can help eliminate some of that pain as well. The pain I feel in my body sometimes in the lower back, it is a constant just practice of stretching, being aware, understanding where the body is in space. Pain is unavoidable. We are going to experience pain sometime in our life, but if we can learn to reframe it and less personal identification to that, then the story in which we live by no longer revolves around that pain. It is a practice. Take a full breath in. Exhale. All right, from here, crawl the hands forward, shift forward onto the hands and knees, place the blocks off to the side, or place your bolster blankets off to the side. So shoulders over wrists, hips over knees, tuck your toes. Cow and cat pose. This is a great one for spinal extension and spinal flexion. Inhale, cow pose, heart pulls forward. Exhale, chin to chest, round the spine, tuck your tailbone. Inhale, pull the heart forward, look forward, cow pose. Exhale, round the spine, tuck the tailbone. Inhale, cow pose, pull the heart forward. Exhale, cat pose, round the spine, tuck the tailbone. Continue on your own. So these are general postures I add into almost every practice. You know, can you do too much of this? Yes, you can. But again, doing about 7 to 8, maybe upwards to 10 is good. But if you know that you have a long practice in mind, then keep it on a little bit of the lower side, 7 to 8 with long, deep breaths. If you're breathing slowly and methodically, doing about 7 to 8 will take you approximately 90 full seconds. Awesome. One more. Inhaling. And exhaling. All right, so another psoas stretch we can do. Let's slide the right knee forward. And I'm going to grab my blocks. I recommend blocks for this one. Have blocks. Place your hands on the block, slide your right knee forward, and lengthen your left leg back. From here, take your shoulders over the wrists. And for everybody, it's going to be a little different. But again, the blocks are going to help elevate our foundation upwards. Draw your right hip back, pull your left hip forward, and then breathe into the left psoas, left iliopsoas. The internal action of taking the left hip forward will help to stretch out the iliopsoas muscles. Full breath in. Exhaling. Deep breath in. Exhaling. Full breath in. And exhaling. One more time. Deep breath in. And exhaling. Slowly slide the right knee back. And then slide the left knee forward. Reach your right toes back. Now, something that I've noticed is there are a lot of teachers that struggle with chronic pain too in their lower backs. And it's important, even as teachers, to really look at what it is that we are doing to our backs. Sometimes it's cold posturing. So, for instance, if you're teaching a class and then you demonstrate a posture without warming the body up properly, that can be a confounding factor to chronic pain as well. So make sure that we are being methodical in our stretch practices and not just going off and doing a pose, because that can create stress later on down the line and pain. Deep breath in. Exhale, try to lift the chest, right hip pulls forward. Long, slow, deep breath in. Exhaling. Long, slow, deep breath in. Exhaling. And deep breath in. Lift your chest up. Exhaling. Slowly slide your left foot back, tabletop position, and then come back onto your heels, shake the hands out. All right, next stretch, getting into our psoas again. Hands on the blocks, slide your right foot forward and sit into the hips. Raise your blocks up to their highest height. That way you're not forcing your way down towards the ground. As you bend into your right knee, right toes point forward, left hip draws forward, right hip firms in. Now, I prefer to use blocks as opposed to, because it's more supportive, rather than, if I'm doing a slow stretch practice, rather than putting my hands here, because there's more control when we have a larger foundation for ourselves. There's less risk of injury. Again, yoga blocks cost about $10 to $15, or fitness blocks, if you will, if you don't like the word yoga. Sit into your hips. Breathe into your right hamstring and left psoas. And of course, if you're newer to stretching, because I know there's probably some people watching this, stretching is going to feel uncomfortable at first. It's not going to be very pleasurable at all. It might feel like shards of glass inside of your body because we just neglected the body. But over time, that goes away. I used to feel that a lot when I first started stretching, but I had teachers that continued to encourage me, to remind me that, we're working through this pain and tension. So just stay with the stretch, use the breath. If you need to back off, back off. Full breath in. Exhale. Deep breath in. Exhaling. take your left foot forward and bend into your left knee. As you bend into your left knee, reach your right knee back, untuck the back right toes. So another part of this posture is to make sure that we are squaring our hips, that we're not just letting the right hip open up, because we want to get into our right psoas. So the action is to take the right hip forward and down as you bring your left hip inward. Lift the chest up. Now, just word for those after this practice. Later on this evening, if you are not used to stretching some of these more secondary muscles, or muscles that haven't been stretched in a while, you may feel a little bit of tightness later on. That is normal. Okay, anything that we're not used to doing and all of a sudden begin to do, there may be some tension later on because of it. You know, the muscle will repair itself. Drink lots and lots of water. That I cannot emphasize that enough. Drinking lots of water and avoiding dehydration will significantly reduce the amount of chronic tension we have throughout our entire body, not just our lower backs. Long, slow, deep breath in. Exhaling. Long, slow, deep breath in. Exhaling. Sit into your hips just a little bit more. Deep breath in. Exhaling. Slowly slide the left foot back and then place your blocks off to the side. Shake your hands out. All right, let's get into a bit of a quad stretch here. Come on to your bellies. Come down slowly. And then from here, let's roll to our right side. So I'm going to roll onto my right side, and I'm going to bring my knees upwards towards my chest. Now, you can let your head rest on a bolster so you have more of a straight spine and you're not getting a crink in your neck. Now, what I'd like you to do is take your left hand to your left knee, slide it down towards your left ankle, and slowly begin to take your left knee back. Right hand can go to the right knee or it can be on the ground for support. And then lightly start to kick your left leg behind you. So now we're starting to get a stretch through the right quadriceps, okay? This quadriceps and the group of muscles that compose the quadriceps are also contributors to lower back pain. Whenever there is a shortening of the front side of the body, that pulls the body forward and down because it is imbalanced with the back body. You have your anterior side front and your posterior side back. When there is imbalances between the two, one side is going to pull more than other. Deep breath in. Exhale. And so sometimes people will come to me and they'll say, oh, I have a tight back. And I'll ask them, well, are you stretching it? And they'll say, well, no. Well, there's one of the answers right there. We have to stretch. You know, every animal in the animal kingdom stretches in some way, shape, or form. And unlike the rest of the animals, we do all sorts of things like have these brilliant ideas of having stationary 9-to-5 jobs where we don't move or we remain relatively stagnant, and then the muscles aren't being used to open up or activate like they're supposed to, and then they enter atrophy, so they begin to shorten, and then we wonder why we have chronic pain. We overload ourselves and overburden ourselves with work. We keep adding more onto our plates, so then we say to ourselves, oh, I'm too busy to go do that. And that is a chronic disease too. I'm too busy. The I'm too busy disease. Take a full breath in. Exhale. And having been a witness to I don't know how many thousands of back surgeries I've seen when I was doing medical sales, but the stories are very similar, and I would hate to see someone have to experience a back surgery if they don't need to. As we switch sides, take the right hand to the right knee, slide the right hand back, and then start to take your right knee back. The efficacy of success rate after 2 years for the first back surgery is 80%. This efficacy for a second back surgery for another 2 years is 20%. So the odds are that if we have to start going down that route of surgery, do everything you can before you get cut. Physical therapy, diet changes, change in nutrition, change in job, or how we are choosing to work at that job, not doing so much, getting more physical activity down under our belts. All great things to do. Back surgery should be the last course of action because it is invasive. And I realize that we use the taglines like minimally invasive, but invasive is invasive is invasive. And there are things that we can do by gently remedying them day to day, but that means we have to take actions and look at our habits. Take a full breath in. Exhale. Full breath in. Kick the right leg back. Exhale. And deep breath in. Exhale. Slowly bring the right knee back into your chest. And the other reason why I want to share this information and give this to people is because you are going to save so much money on co-payments, deductibles, and if you don't have surgery, don't have insurance, the typical back pain, the average back surgery costs roughly $100,000 to $150,000. I think on the higher end, $250,000. You could buy a lot with that. On the lower end, because of insurances and billing and things like that, around $4,000 for an epidural injection, $50,000 for a disectomy. A lot of money. And so by working and doing these practices on a regular basis, we run less risk of a chance to need to go down that route. It's not surefire, it's not a guarantee, but we reduce it significantly. Please bring your right knee into your chest. Take a long, slow, smooth breath in. And on the exhale, twist across your body over to the left side. Right arm goes out to the right side. Right palm face up. Right shoulder blade down the back. Long, slow, smooth breath in. Exhale. Long, slow, smooth breath in. Exhaling. And long, slow, smooth breath in. Exhale. Couple more. Inhaling. Exhaling. And inhaling. Exhaling. With your next inhale, bring the right knee back into your chest. Bring your left knee into your chest. Lengthen your right leg forward. Full breath in. Flex the feet. Exhale, twist across your body over to your right side. Left arm goes out to the left. Left shoulder down. Look to your left. And for those that do study the philosophy of yoga, the number one thing that we can practice, the number one thing is nonviolence. And nonviolence is a very loaded word, and so we have to break it down. It is asking ourselves, like being as honest as we can in that asking, how are we being honest? How are we harming ourselves through our day-to-day activities and by the foods that we are putting into our bodies? If we know that we are allergic to something, are we continuing to go down that route of feeding that allergy? If we know that something is causing inflammation, and inflammation is a sign that there's an allergy taking place, are we doing things to contribute to that inflammation as well? Are we overworking and not getting enough rest? We have to be honest with ourselves. Non-violence. On an inhale, please bring the left knee in towards the chest. Bring the right knee in towards the chest. Give yourself one final hug and a squeeze. Hug everything together. And on the exhale, let's take a few moments to just relax. Place bolsters or blankets underneath your knees. Place your hands on your body. Relax the face, lips, eyes, mouth, and jaw. And so after a stretch section of your choice, always take about 3 minutes to 5 minutes. If you can go longer, go longer. Time it if you need to, but come down from your practice. Slow down. Breathe. Shavasana. Imagine your body resting as it is on the floor. Observe any pain or tension throughout it, and see it being dissolved. Imagine yourself as pain-free. See yourself as whole and complete, without the complications of pain getting in the way. If we frame it right, pain is a teacher for us. And pain is teaching us that there is something going on in our bodies. Are we tuning it out and numbing it and simply treating the symptoms? Or are we tuning into it to understand probable causations? The more we can look without personally identifying at the pain, the more we can see the causation of that pain. Whether it is physical or psychological. And when we can begin to see the physical or psychological causations, we can then create a course of action for ourselves to gently, lovingly, sincerely, and compassionately release existing stresses and pains within the body. slow, deep breath in. Exhale, let it go. Long, slow, deep breath in. Exhale, letting it go. And long, slow, deep breath in. Exhale, letting it go. Lightly begin to move the fingers and toes. Circle out your wrists and ankles. Roll your shoulders up, back, and down. Turn your head to the left and to the right. And with the deepest, longest inhales all day, please reach and extend your arms up and over the head. And on the exhale, arms down along the sides. Placing a gentle bend in the knees, rolling it over to your left or right side. Use your top hand, press yourself up. Come into a comfortable seated position. And just sitting here for a moment, having a moment of heart to heart. For those that tuned in and listened, with any of this work, a lot of it is experiential. A lot of it has also been experiencing my own back pains through life in ways that I have found that have helped to remedy it. Today was just a stretch class. There is strengthening classes we can do too to help build strength, and I'll teach that as well in the future. But first it is being as honest as we can with ourselves, because if we can't be honest with ourselves about things, and sometimes it means reaching out for help, sometimes it means having a buddy system, sometimes it means seeing therapists, and especially I feel that a lot of pain is 90% driven. And we're a-okay seeing a physical therapist when something goes on, but for some reason when it comes to mental therapy, there's pushback. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't at all. I work with therapists all the time. And the more that I see it, it actually makes us more well-rounded to see these professionals that know what they're doing and know what they're talking about to help us. So that way, life isn't seizing us by our tensions and pains, but we're able to navigate through life with significant more ease because we don't have that little voice in the background and that incessant sensation in the background constantly grabbing at us to get our attention. You are the investment. Remember that. We have to invest in ourselves. And so just these little investments of practicing daily, even if it means, if you go to a yoga class and that yoga class is a 10, 15, 20, whatever it is, but just going to that class and having a routine maintenance over time, the cumulative effect of being gentle on the body, loving to the body, and kind to the body will react accordingly. The body is the physical temple in which we navigate and move through life with. And the more that we begin to see that, as opposed to roughhousing with it, jamming it, slamming it all around, the better we are overall. So I thank you for your time today. I appreciate you. Thanks for listening to some of my diatribes. I love you all, and I love this practice so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Ho'oponopono. Aho. Namaste, friend.